In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a charcuterie tray such as this using walnut, epoxy, and some shells. So stay tuned and we'll get into how this is done. So I've let the silicone dry in this mold now. I also prepared a board to go into this charcuterie board, and what I tried to do is I tried to cover roughly maybe a little over a third, between a third and a half, depending on how the live edge drifts, of the actual serving tray area. So it would be that much of it would be wood. A couple things, I think it looks nice. Also, it reduces the cost of epoxy, which is very expensive. So I have planed this board down. I cut the ends straight and made it so it will fit fairly snug into the form. And I've jointed the back side, sanded everything, put a little brand on there for my customer so they can know where they got it from in case they ever forget. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some epoxy. Like I said, we're going to pour this in and we're just going to get a thin layer. Okay, so the first thing I did, I didn't do this on camera, but I did check to make sure that this form was sitting fairly level. So I'm going to pour in, I'm going to try 6 ounces of this. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. My compressor kicked on, so I'll try to talk over it. So I got 6 ounces of the part A. I'm going to pour 6 ounces of the part B. Part B is a little thinner. There we are, 6 more ounces, so we're up to 12 total ounces. One thing you want to make sure of is when you want to make sure you scrape the bottom really well when you mix, so you get a really nice thorough mix. We're just gonna pour some in. I just place that in and I work it back and forth. I want to see it ooze out on all sides. I want all sides to have some coverage here. So it's already coming out of the top here, you can see, and I don't want it that thick, but I do want it up there. And there's a couple reasons. Well, I don't want it that thick because it's going to end up affecting my final product. But I do want it up here because I want that wood to have a layer on top of it already. Because what I've found is if you don't, then eventually you're going to get epoxy on it. And that epoxy is going to bubble like crazy because there's just trapped air in this wood. So these gloves make a good spreader. And you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, I hope you can. It's working its way out here. I want to make sure my board gets tight back there. Sometimes the epoxy makes it kind of float away. Alright, I think I've got enough back in there. I'm pretty confident. So I'm going to take the rest of this stuff that I had sitting. I'm just going to coat the bottom here. One other nice thing I've learned over by doing epoxy tables and doing these is if you do, especially the first layer thin, it's a little more likely to, instead of leak out, if you did have a faulty form or mold, it's a little less likely if it's thin, a thin layer first, to leak out because you don't have all that weight, the gravity pulling down on all the epoxy. And it just seems like the more you put in, the more likely that if there is a bad spot in that form, it's going to leak. So I'm still getting it pushing away from the side a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is put a small shim underneath this, just to help gravity make this board want to stay back where I want it. And it shouldn't really matter because, like I said, this is a clear coat. You're never going to see it. Could make a difference though in getting it to look the way I want to. I will remove those shims when I actually go to start pouring water in. Alright, I'm going to hit this with a heat gun and just pop some of these bubbles and hopefully get this thing looking good and ready to dry. So I've let this epoxy dry, and now I'm ready to put in a layer that kind of resembles sand. What I'll end up doing here, and I'll show you, is I'm just going to use a few acrylic paints, and we will mix those up into a color that I think looks pretty close. And then I will mix up some epoxy, and we'll stir that paint into it and try to tint the epoxy that way. So you don't want to overdo it with the paint. What I'm going to use for the colors is I'm going to use yellow ochre and a little bit of white. As you can see, this is what I'm using right here. I bought these on Amazon. And here's the white. So this is almost out. Kind of wanted it a little bit deeper. I may just tilt this form up a little bit. I want it to come up the wood a little bit further. So I'll just probably just push this block that I have back here under a little bit further. Just create a little bit steeper angle. Get to flow that way a little bit more. Outside of that, I think we're going to be okay. It's about the amount I wanted to come this direction. So the rest of this, it'll be see-through like blue water. So we'll let this dry and we'll get back at it here tomorrow and pour some more color in. Okay, the beach colored, sand colored epoxy is now dry. I am getting ready to set these shells in here. My customer picked up shells off the beach and one of them included in this. So I'm just gonna start placing them in. One thing you gotta kind of watch is the thickness of the shells. These sand dollars aren't much of a concern, but some of the other ones maybe. And I'm gonna put these sand dollars in first because they are the thinnest, so they can be up towards this edge without any concern at all. But some spiral ones like this may be a problem. check to see if they're sticking up too high is I'll just hold a piece of wood on the actual wood part here, and I'll just kind of swing it, and if it hits one, see it's hitting that one, those are going to be problems. This is going to be a problem, and that one, those two spiral ones are not going to work at all. These nice ones right here. I don't know if this one will work either. So this is an easy way to check. That one actually will clear. Not sure about these. Yeah, those. I think those will clear if I put them down towards the bottom here a little ways. Unfortunately, these two really nice ones aren't going to. I haven't found any like those. Those are kind of nice, especially for the size. I wish it would fit. So I'm going to fill in some more of these spots. I think that this will work. What I have here is I have 3 containers. I have some epoxy tint. The first one here is blue-green, made by Black Diamond Pigments. Bring that in right there. See it? Alright, so that's going to be my shallower water tint, or kind of my mid-range actually. The other one I have is Pacific Blue, made by Eye Candy. And we can find these on Amazon. I will provide the links. And they will be affiliate links, but they won't cost you any more. So I'll do 2 colors, shades of blue, and then I'll also do one that's just clear. We are not going to put much pigment in these. We want to be able to see through. A little bit goes a long way in this case. So I'm going to mix this up and we will go from there. So I'll mix a large amount in this container, and then I'll divide it out and then tin it after I divide it out. So I'm probably going to do close to 20 ounces. I'm going to go towards the top of this. So I'm going to divide this large amount and this 2 smaller other amounts. So it looks like I have roughly 8 ounces in this and about 6 in the other 2. So I feel like I have more dark blue that I need to put in. So I'm going to put the dark blue in as a little bit larger amount. And then like I said, I'll do one that's clear and I'll do one that's the blue-green. And we'll go from there. So I'll always start with the deepest spot first, because gravity is going to cause this to flow. And keep in mind, we want to keep kind of covering up these shells so that they take care of all the air pockets as much as possible. My goal after this pour is to not have to worry about air the rest of the time. Now, whether that's a reality or not, I don't know, but that's the goal at least. So I'm going to take this Pacific Blue, and I'm going to this is not a science here, because I'm not actually sure exactly how much to use, but I take like a popsicle stick, and I just put a little bit on the end, and I don't want much. A little bit's going to go a long way. I'll just do that little amount. I'm going to mix it. I'll just use the same stick I just used. I'm going to mix this up, and I'm going to see if it's dark enough. I don't think it is. No, it's not. It's very, very lightly tinted right now. You can kind of see. But it needs to be a little bit more blue than that. But I do want to be able to see my stick down in the epoxy as I stir it. And if I pour it out, I want to be able to see You should be able to see the wood grain and stuff. If you can't, I feel like it's a little bit too much, so I'll put a little bit more in. You can see right there. You can still see this wood down in there, but it definitely, if I hold it up here, I can still tell that there's tape. I can see the stuff, but not very well. That's what I want. We want that deep dark blue as much as possible, but still making it look somewhat transparent. So next one is going to be this blue green from Black Diamond. I'm going to use the same, no, I'm not going to use the same stick. It could just be a problem. Alright, we're going to just use this stick, do the same technique, and I'm actually going to stir with that. Same idea. I want to be able to see through this as much as possible. If for some reason I get it too much color in there, I can always dump some clear in. It's as bad. I don't think I wanted any more color than I have. That's for sure. It's on the edge of being too much. I can see the stick down through there. I can't really see much else if I hold the container up. However, this is probably not going to go very far, so I think we're going to be okay. So I'm going to pour this blue in. Oh, I just bumped those. I hope they're still okay. So the blue is going to go in this end, and it's going to flow. I'm going to leave a little bit in here so I can move on to the next color and get that pushing the blue back a little bit. So I'm going to come out, I'm going to just pour. As I pour, I'm just coating these shells just to help start that sealing process. I'm going to cover these here. I may mix a little bit of that blue-green with this because I don't need to start the clear quite this far up. So this is a very, very faint blue-green I got going on now. I'll kind of break up a little bit of that color that's going on with the sand. Oh, I got shells moving. And I have a little bit more clear here. Just going to pour along the shoreline. A little bit more over top of some of these shells. I guess they've bubbled out since I initially poured. One thing I like to do is I kind of just like to blend the layers. You can do that with a stick. You can do that with your gloved hand. It doesn't really matter. But I think it just, I don't stir it good. I just kind of bring one layer into the other. So there's not like this distinct line. Kind of slowly turns from one to the other. I've given it a day. This is all dry. And this is the same technique as what we just did yesterday. So it's just a matter of mixing the colors. I'm gonna do similar colors. Again, if it gets to be too much, you can always add a little bit of clear to it. Now this container wouldn't be big enough to add clear to. This is about perfect for me, honestly. I can see the stick the whole way to the bottom. That's a lot of times how I'll gauge it. How far can I see that stick down inside of that container? And I can see it the whole way to the bottom. So it's going to give you that tint, but it's not going to block out the shells, because we definitely want to see these shells. Okay, so here we go. We're going to pour some more in. I think I want a little bit more of this blue-green, black diamond blue-green. So I'm just going to put some in this container of clear. That. So here I'm just kind of blending the layers. Again, you can do this with a stick. I could do it with my hands with this glove on. I'll show you how that's done. So you just take it, you can kind of just do this, and it just gets a little, I don't know, just kind of go back and forth, especially right where the colors transition. No like normal pattern, just kind of swirl it. I like the heat gun because I feel like there's a little less chance of it scorching. If you heat this stuff up too much, it'll scorch and it'll harden, and you really mess it up. The heat gun is a little bit more controlled. You aren't putting direct flame on it. As long as you always keep it moving. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to mix up some clear. I have, I'd say maybe about a 1/16 of an inch lip between the wood and the epoxy. I want to pour in a little bit here, and I'm going to mix up a little bit of white. This is actually dried, but see how this new epoxy I've never used before works with making waves. I'm really hoping it works well, because honestly, I really like, so far, I really like the how clear this is. I used a different brand before, Total Boat, and it every time I mixed it, it kind of had a foggy look to it. It spread really well with the waves, but that fogginess I couldn't get past, and which is why I wanted to try a different kind. So we're gonna try this out, and we're gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna do a rough calculation here to try to get an idea how much to mix up so I don't over flood this. I don't want to go too much and waste it. So I'm gonna do a quick measurement, see where I'm at. So I took the middle. It's about, I'd say it's pretty close to average of how wide it is. I'm going to figure out the area. Actually, I'll try to figure out volume. Again, I'm estimating this lip, and I don't want to go over, so I really want to just to cover it. So the formula you want to use when you calculate an epoxy is take your cubic inches, divide it by 61. That tells you the number of liters you need. Okay, the product I'm using for the white is called Alumilite White, and it's a resin dye, it says. I have experimented with multiple products. This one has worked well for me. You just put a couple drops in and then you mix it up. So we're gonna see how this goes. Pour a little bit in here. Don't need a lot because we won't use a whole lot of this actually. And then I'm gonna pour this in here. Now the key, one important thing is make sure you have your heat gun ready, because you are going to use it in this step. Alright, so I'm going to put just a couple drops in here. It doesn't take a whole lot. I'm just going to mix it up. Now, you want to heat everything up. So I'm just going to start by heating this, but I don't want to scorch it. The epoxy moves a lot better when it's warm. And I'm also going to warm this white up a little bit. And what I do is I like to just kind of make a wave. A line for a wave, I mean. And out here it doesn't really matter as much where it is or the shape of it. When I get close to the shore, I kind of like to follow the shoreline as close as I can. And I'm just going to take some on a stick and I'm going to just draw it in. One thing you gotta be careful of when you're doing this, and it's not quite, it's fixable if it happens, but watch your drips. It's really easy to accidentally drip, like I did just right there. It may not be something you want. You can kind of bring it back in a little bit if it's close. If you trip it out in the middle of nowhere, it might look kind of weird. And I'm just gonna, okay, so we take that. Now I'm just gonna warm this up, and once I start seeing it spread on its own, that's how I know to start blowing it in a direction to create that wave. So I'll just wait for it to dissipate, and it'll start to get like a, this is actually turning out good. It start getting like a frothy look to it. And then you can just kind of blow it like a wave. You can go either direction. And I want to see this little like circular bubble looking, I don't know what you call them. They call it lacing, I don't know. And I didn't like really how this covered some of these shells, so I'm going to try to back it off a little bit. You can see how, hopefully you can see how it kind of froths out. This stuff's actually really good. I highly recommend this epoxy. It did as good of a job as any I've used. It was reasonably priced and easy to work with. It looks like it's going to have a lot of bubbles when you're mixing it, but they pop right out with the heat gun. So the brand is super clear. It says by FGCI, Fiberglass Coatings Incorporated. And I got this from Amazon. I will put an affiliate link down in the description so that you can get a hold of this stuff. Like I said, this is as good as what I've used for these, honestly. Very happy with how that wave turned out, because I have had some bad luck with some other ones. And I'll also put in a link for this white dye, Alumalite white dye, so that you can get that if you want to recreate these. So we'll stop here and I will come back and we should finish this thing out. So hopefully it all dries up nice and turns out well. Okay, this is just a little tacky still. I think it's safe to go forward. You just don't want to do it where it's like taffy. It has just a minor tack, which I think is good. It'll help adhere to the next layer. After I shut the camera off, I started messing around a little bit. I didn't like how far forward the white was coming. It was starting to really cover the shells. So I tilted the whole tray back, tried to get all that to settle back in here, and then it started flowing forward again, of course, because of gravity and everything. So I mixed up a little more clear and poured it in front of it to kind of slow that flow of white back. And my hope was, yeah, I know it's going to flow back some, but as it flows back, it'll push the clear forward instead of going forward, you know, too far with the white and covering up these shells. So when I did that, I lost a little bit of the detail. It had already started getting close to setting, so I just decided to leave it as is and we can address it here in this next layer. So it almost flowed up to the edge. I'm going to mix up another batch in here. We got two different containers again. The other ones are still a little tacky, so I'm going to do the same thing I just did. This time I'm hoping to get it to go straight up to the wood. Okay, I'm going to pour this in. I'm hoping it floods right back to the wood. From what I can tell, it needs a little bit more. I'm going to mix up a couple more ounces. So I'm just kind of checking right now to see if I have good coverage. It's kind of hard to tell because it's clear. It definitely, I think we're good. We're up to the edge of the wood. It's covered back here in the back. So I need to take these gloves off. I can't really work with doing the rest of this with them on. I'm just gonna have to be a little extra careful. I'll just come in. I'm just gonna bring it in here again like this. Took me a while to figure out how to do this. As you can imagine, there's a lot of people out there that don't want to show you how to do stuff like this because they're making money on it, and I totally understand that. I was trying to figure it out, and I just watched little videos very closely. I'd watch them, I'd rewind them, I'd watch them again. Different sources, until I could figure out exactly what they were doing, figure out what they were using, and I still had a lot of trouble getting it down right. And what it ended up being, honestly, was that heat gun. The heat gun made the difference. Once I learned that technique, that's when I started getting a lot better looking waves. Some of my early ones didn't look great. So we'll see how this goes. Just gonna warm everything up here. Pop bubbles. And we're just gonna focus some heat until it starts dissipating. This is looking good right here. I got some nice depth. I'd like to see this spread a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see if I can get it to lace out. Alright. Get up here in the front. I can see it's already overflowing the wood. Which is it's okay. I may have to do a little flood coat. I think I need some more, a little more white up here in the front where the waves are breaking onto the shore. So we're gonna just bring in a little bit more. I'm gonna bring a little bit of white right on the edge of this. To highlight that edge. Just gonna warm that a little bit. Just to knock off some of the harshness of the line that I made. That's all I'm trying to do. I don't want to overheat it. That actually looks really good. May actually do that right along the front of this one too. I think it'll really set the tone for this, and I think that should finish it off if I can get it to look right here. So we're going to just bring this in, follow right along the front of where that wave stops. There, I got a drip. I'll have to see if I can get that to dissipate a little bit. Now it's dripping on the pants. I have ruined a lot of clothes doing this. Come in, you think, oh, it's just a little bit of epoxy, I won't make a mess, and next thing you know, it's on a shirt that you really liked, or you don't even know how it got on there. Go home and like, oh crap, I just ruined my shirt. So it happens. Alright, I'm going to lower heat here. I'm going to try to get that one drip to spread. I think it's going to do it fine. And I'm just going to bust up the front of this wave just a little bit, but I don't want it to flow anywhere. I just want it to kind of keep that dark line, just soften it. So I'm not trying to blow it front or back. I really don't like this right here at all. I may try to make another wave out of it, to be honest. Alright, I think we're getting a little bit better look here. I really like how that changed the front of that. Okay, I think that we got this pretty well covered here. So the last thing I'll end up needing to do, I don't like to make these where there's a lip where the epoxy stops and the wood starts. So I'll probably do just a light flood coat just to finish that off. So we're gonna leave this dry and see where it gets us probably tomorrow. Okay, this has dried. It's the next day here, and everything looks like it's pretty good actually. The only thing is I have a little transition where the epoxy is resting over top of the wood, and as I said before, I don't really like that. I want a nice smooth surface the whole way across, and I knew it was probably going to happen. But what I typically do then to remedy that is to just do a really thin flood coat over the top of this. I want to make sure everything's covered. I don't want to go very thick, but I want to make sure that I get extra right here in this wood area so that it brings it all to the same level. So I'm going to pour this in. One thing that I've noticed when doing this is if you don't get it all, the whole surface covered, it takes a little bit longer to spread out and level out. So I actually like to tilt the tray a little bit back and forth, get the whole area covered, and it finds its way into the uncovered, or in the whole way levels itself out a lot better. I'm going to start down here, pour some in here, and then I'm going to work its way down here. I'm going to let this dry. I think probably tomorrow I'll be able to demold this. So you can see the form comes apart real easily. Just back the screws off and tap them until it breaks free. It's one of the reasons I like using this as a form. So what we're going to do is drive a wedge down in here to free up the tray from the base. I mean, you could use things like a chisel. I'd be a little bit worried I'd do damage to something, either to mess up my base for the next time or mess up the bottom of the tray. So what I usually do is I just drive shims, just wooden shims, down in there. Now they break sometimes, so you go through a few shims doing this, but that's what we're going to try to do. So I'm going to tilt this camera a little bit, and I'm just going to try to find where the two meet. And I start in the corner, and this one already broke. Let's see if we can get it started anyways. Nope, that one broke. Let's try this one. Alright, I'm down in. I like to just drive it a little ways. Get another one. Come down a little bit. You can hear it pulling apart. Sometimes I'll coming from the other side now. Alright, so now this one is freed up. I'll move it down. We'll get to a point where it's just going to pop free. So this one's freed up. Move it down. And it is free. Alright, so you can see I did a little damage to the tape, but that's really all. So the next time I use this form. I just need to fix that tape up a little bit. A little bit came off here on the bottom. Not a big deal at all. The bottom of the tray looks pretty good. I'm going to get something to set this on. I have some rags over here, just in case there's something on this tabletop that I don't want to get on it. First thing I see is there's a lip, and this happens every time. There's a lip around the entire perimeter. Probably hard to see on a camera, but it's right here. It sticks up a good bit. What I typically do, and it goes the whole way around, so it's basically where the epoxy met the form, it kind of just stuck to the sides a little bit. So what I usually do is I will just take this to my router, and I'll do a little round over on it, and it usually cleans it up pretty good. And then I'm looking at these edges, and there's a little bit on the bottom like that too. So I will round over the bottom. This entire bottom has like lines from where the tape was. So what I'm going to likely do is I'm going to sand the bottom pretty heavily. So that's the next stages I'm going to do. So we'll dig into that and let's see how things look. As I go, I also most likely will sand these edges because they do have some marks from the form as well. So I'll go the whole way around the edges. When I round over these corners, I'll probably sand those as well because they look a lot better. I try to avoid hitting any of the top with sandpaper. I like how it looks, and if you scuff it, it's hard to get it back. The only way to really get it back is by sanding the whole thing and doing a flood coat. I sanded the bottom of this tray, and I still have a lot of marks from where the tape was. Some of them are actually kind of go down in a bit. It would take significant sanding to get them to where I need them to be. So at this point, the easiest thing to do is just coat it all with epoxy. So I'm going to show you how to do that. This does happen occasionally when you make these. I cleaned up the edges pretty good. There were a few spots that had some air bubbles, and I sanded down into them, and I actually used a product. It's a 2-part epoxy, but it activates with UV light. Something I found on Amazon. It actually works quite well. I'll probably show that in a future video. But I used that to fill up a few of the holes that were on the edges that I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get very easily. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to tape the top side, and the reason I do that is I don't want any epoxy ruining the surface. So I'm going to run this tape corner to corner. I'm going to start right on that radius that I made when I routed it. So what'll end up happening is the epoxy will run down over the edge. It'll drip right along here. I should be able to pull that tape right up without any issues at all. And should be really easy cleanup. Now, I am going to use this denatured alcohol. I'm just going to wipe the dust off. Put it on a rag and wipe. It actually does a very nice job if you ever need to clean dust off of something. When I do epoxy work, sometimes I'll do that just to see, you can get a good idea of what it's looking like just by cleaning that dust off. I have some blocks made up that I use for tables. They are also wrapped in this. So I'm gonna get those out. They're just 2x2, 2x2 blocks. Here's another one. Just in case it were to leak out into the table, it's nice to have them wrapped up. So, get that rag out of here. It's gonna drip all over this. I already know that. My main thing right now is, can I get this level? That's pretty good. Check it the other way. I think that'll work. All right, so I'm gonna pour this on. Spread it, I'm gonna pour it in the middle. I'm gonna try to keep as much of it on here as I can. So I can see this is gonna flow over real soon. I don't want it to yet because I don't want to lose all that. I'm gonna start spreading this around and then let it level itself out. Once it's all covered. So the best way I really feel is get everything wet with the epoxy. Once it's wet, it'll find its way a lot easier. So you can do this on either side. If you had a defect on the other side, you could do it on the other side as well. So like if this were to mess something up for some reason on my good side, I could always fix it same way I'm doing this. And there shouldn't really be any issues. All right, I think it's gonna be good. So we'll let this dry. Probably tomorrow I should be able to peel that tape off and hopefully be ready to drill the holes for the handles. So I've let this dry a few days here. It was a little bit tacky after the first day, and then we had a holiday weekend here, so I haven't been in the shop since. So I'm gonna flip this over and peel the tape off. And the drips all just form on the tape, so it comes right off really easily. I did have a little bit of epoxy leak underneath that tape right there. I'm probably gonna have to hit this with sandpaper a little bit. It also is gonna need rerouted. This corner's a little off now. It took some of that round over off. There's a better way to do this. The only thing is I was trying to fix some spots that were on the edges. So I wanted to get epoxy on here. The best way to do this actually is to line the tape on the side. So you want to put tape down these sides right here, and it just drips right down the tape, and it doesn't get anything on the sides. It doesn't get anything on the opposite side that you're flood coating. So that is actually the best way to do it. I had a few defects I wanted to fix on the sides, and so I did it this way. But I'm going to hit this with a little bit of sandpaper just in these few spots where it leaked under, and then we'll see how we are looking. But I think we're almost done here. So this is all ready for the handle to be put on. Cleaned up the edges, got everything sanded how I wanted it to be. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So I think it's ready for handles. So I'm gonna set these two blocks down These are just going to be, I'm going to use the drill into the piece. And so the first thing I want to do is I just want to find the center. And I need a pencil. I'm going to find the center, which should be about 6 3/8. Make a little mark with a pencil. And then I have just one of these jigs that you can get at home improvement stores. It has the preset holes for door pulls, and because I use this enough, I marked the holes I want to use, and I actually found the center and I actually made a mark exactly where the center between those two holes are. And so what I can do then is, I also filed this down. There used to be like a lip right here. You can see I stopped it right here. I still have one here, so I can set this, line the center line up that I just drew with the center line that's on the actual jig, and then I can just go to the 2 spots where my holes need to be and make a dot. And now I know where I need to drill. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. And what I'll do is I'll just drill it down through. So one other thing I like to do, so when you put these screws in and the head sticks out, and I don't like that. I like to recess that head down in a little bit. This you have to be really careful with, because you can really mess things up pretty quick. But so I use a larger drill bit, and when you switch to a larger bit, it's going to want to eat it off a lot quicker. So I really got to control the speed. All I'm trying to do is just lightly recess that head. You don't have to go very far. But you gotta be really careful. Almost give, like my left hand is giving a little of resistance so it doesn't go as fast, because if it grabs, it'll go. It doesn't take much. It should, I mean, maybe 1/4 of an inch at the most. What I'll do is I'll try these, see how much sticks out. So that looks like good clearance. So long as those threads will get into where the handle is, I think we'll be okay. And I'm gonna just place this in. Looks like it's gonna grab. Now, you don't want to tighten it down too much until you get the second one started, just in case the holes aren't perfect. It's a lot easier to get that second one started once, if I can get on the head here. There we go. If you over tighten it too soon, it just, sometimes they don't line up quite right. So there's one. So I didn't want, when I designed these, I didn't want those screw heads to be sticking out. I was kind of concerned they'd scratch countertops and just do damage if it slid around on a table. So I thought, why not recess them? And it's worked out quite well. Like I said, you just gotta be extra careful when you're drilling those holes, because you can go too far too fast on that countersink for the head. Other than that, flip this over, see how it turned out. So here's the final product. Hopefully I showed you some tips and techniques on how to do things such as this, and that you got some value out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe, ring the little bell. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down in the comment section below, and I will try to get to them as soon as I can. And just stay tuned for our next video. Thanks for watching.